Slide canceling has been a thing in COD since people discovered how to abuse it back in Modern Warfare 2019, and it has been something that has stuck around for the better part of 3 years, and people are finally starting to get fed up with it, and I personally believe it's about time we move on from this meta. Now, while most people can slide cancel because it's literally the easiest thing that has ever graced COD, my main problem with the mechanic is the in-game effects and the real-life effects it has on people. Starting with the in-game effects, the main thing that really gets to me is that anyone could just pick up slide canceling in 5 minutes, and now they have access to a very exploitable mechanic, and it immediately makes them better. And I'm all here for improving at the game and becoming a better player, but using an exploitable thing like slide canceling is just not the way to do it. It also doesn't help that being able to slide cancel can literally make the game unplayable for some players that have disabilities, because those players literally cannot slide cancel. So we have these players that are just getting fried and not having a good time at all because they physically can't compete with these players that can barely slide cancel already without screwing it up. And I understand we have SBMM for that, but I know for a fact there's still players that are simply better in these lower skilled lobbies that just ruin it for everyone, especially with the amount of people reverse boosting. And moving on, slide canceling also chalks the skill gap in these newer COD games, which is something I really don't like. I personally believe that there should be a pretty sizable skill gap in games that if you're really good at a game, it should be known that you are simply just better, and you know the game better than everyone else, whereas with Call of Duty, someone that is trying their balls off in a pub and slide canceling everywhere who looks like he's good at the game, you throw him in a ranked play lobby, and you realize real quick the dude doesn't know what he's doing besides just slide canceling and shooting. And I'm not saying bro is bad, I'm just saying he looks way better than he really is because of his movement. And while these higher skilled players are obviously better and are going to be obviously seen as better players because of their knowledge, the problem is that the skill gap isn't really that high. And it's not like you can constantly keep improving things, because once you get to that skill level, you kind of just hit a glass ceiling. You really can't go any further like you could if you were in a game like CS. And I know I kind of sound hypocritical right now because in the background gameplay, you could clearly see me slide canceling, and I also know I'm not the greatest player to grace the controller, but in a game environment like COD, you literally have to abuse these things, because if you don't, you're going to get fried and you won't ever do good. And bringing it back to that ceiling, you hit it. Because everyone is doing the same thing, you also have to do it, and everyone just hits the ceiling that if you want to break through, you really have to go that extra level, which even then has a ceiling pretty fast. Whereas you get rid of slide canceling and it's like older CODs, there's more of a skill gap to learn everything and to be a standout player. For example, in Black Ops 4, you couldn't just slide cancel to the other side of the map in 2 seconds. Instead, you'd actually have to know what you're doing to move around fast. For example, you would take Ruin and then grapple to specific areas and then boost slide into the other side of the map. While it's not the most complex thing ever, it still takes more skill than slide canceling, just obviously because you have to know more about what you're doing and where to position the grapple hook and how to hit the ledge to boost slide off it. Or if you want to go even further, to where I think there was the highest skill gap in the COD, the jetpack CODs. In those games, you had a noticeable skill gap because the movement could be so crazy in those games that you could really go crazy and become a demon if you took the time to learn all the mechanics. And I know that there is the argument that back in games like Black Ops 3 and AW, you had mechanics like G-sliding, but these mechanics are just so much more different than slide canceling. They weren't nearly as abused or ever really known about that well, and all they really did was make you a tad bit faster off rip when even then you had jetpacks, so you really didn't even need G-sliding like that. One thing though is that you wouldn't see people G-sliding into gunfights like you do with slide canceling, just because of the disadvantage you were at. And moving back to slide canceling in modern games, I know there are people that have insane movement in Warzone and Vanguard that obviously are above that normal skill gap because they took the time to learn the mechanics. I'm mainly talking about the majority of players here who have the most bare bones movement when it comes to slide canceling and just moving around. Also, one last thing is that slide canceling resets your attack sprint, which makes it much more appealing to people because you hit 2 slide cancels in Vanguard and you're already at full speed again, which is something I personally despise. It's honestly one of the most annoying things to me for whatever reason, and it just kind of pisses me off, I don't know why. But one last thing I want to bring to light too is the effect slide canceling has on your controllers. Slide canceling and attack sprint are some of the most detrimental things your controller can go through. Having to constantly smash your joysticks in or your buttons takes a toll on your controller pretty quickly. Just recently, I got a Battle Beaver to retire my 8-year-old scuff that I've been using, and over the course of less than a year, I have noticed way more decay in that controller from slide canceling and attack sprinting than I ever did over the course of 5 years with my scuff, where there was no slide canceling in COD games. And that alone disgusts me because I really don't need to be buying a new controller every half year because of a stupid mechanic in the game. And I only use my Battle Beaver for COD, so it's purely just COD mechanics that I'm abusing in my controller, which makes it even worse. At least with my Scuff, I was playing every single game with it, and still it didn't wear out as quickly. And not to even mention the stick drift you get after a couple months because you are torturing your joysticks by mashing them in constantly. There's a reason COD pros go through controllers so often. They use them for hours and hours every single day, and they can't use auto attack sprint, so they are literally just cooking their controllers daily, and they have to give up after just a couple of months and get a new controller. Honestly, I think it would be better if you just chuck your controller at your wall as hard as you could than to play COD for a month. It's really just annoying the effects it has on controllers, and most people don't have the money to spend on controllers this often, especially if you're like me that use a modded controller like a Scuff or a Battle Beaver. Especially a Scuff, because those are way more expensive now than they were before. Regardless though, the slide cancelling meta needs to go. While I might not be the most convincing person because of my skill and my use of slide cancelling, I am assuring you, if you played a new COD without slide cancelling and got good at it to the point where you are better than the 99%, you would be on the same page with me. Let me know though what you think about the slide cancelling meta, and if you like it or not in the comments below, and if you did enjoy the video, make sure not to leave without leaving a like and subscribing for more. But until the next time, see ya.